Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition, it's Ultraman, brought to us by BEC. Ultraman on Nintendo Game Boy is a simple fighter that has some questionable controls and exploitable AI, in a game that I was doing some speed runs of, so I decided to go ahead and play through it as a Play It Through. I admit fully, I don't know a whole lot about Ultraman other than very basic information. I am a fan of giant kaiju monsters and such, so I know I would like at least parts of Ultraman for sure, as I'm a huge Godzilla fan. The way that you exploit the AI is with your roll attack. Well, your roll. You roll towards the enemy and then either attack them or grab a hold of them and immediately go into the throw. You can see that there's a nice little animation of them getting up and then turning around. Very stiff animation, but one that is very telling nonetheless, and you want to kind of, when it first turns around, you're right there with your next roll. If you do it too early or too late, you run the risk of just bumping into him or him being able to hit you. Then, once you've weakened the opponent, you have to do your finishing move, and to do that, you have to have the opponent in finish. Select the option at the bottom of the screen, the far right one, the SP one, and then you need to press up 3 times and the attack button in order to send a blast finishing off the creature you're dealing with. Now, I think it's 3, it's usually 3, but sometimes it didn't quite work, sometimes I did it 4 times and it worked. It just is kind of finicky, that part. Also, to be able to change what you have selected on the bottom menu, you have to press up and right, like diagonally, like hold up and then hit right on the D-pad, so you're holding both buttons kind of at the same time and selecting over the options until you get to where you need to. And you have to do this every fight in order to get to that finishing move. The biggest and weirdest thing, though, about the game is the jump. You can jump with the start button. Of all games that I played, just the fact that a fighter has start button as its jump is pretty funny nonetheless. For the second fight here against Balton, we're going to be doing the same thing we did before, waiting for it to turn around. Don't worry, there is a couple of fights where we do something a little bit different than just picking up the enemy and throwing them right back down to the ground. Not many, but there is a few, so if you're looking forward to something a little bit more interesting, we will have a battle that tests us a bit as we go on, and is one of the reasons why I haven't really tried to set a record yet in the game. I'm having trouble with that one fight in particular. Here I hit my finish once again on the opponent, and we're moving on to match number 3. Next up is the Red King, or the Black and White King on the Nintendo Game Boy here. Our strategy, though, is going to remain the same, doing our roll move and having them just kind of take it, stand back up, turn around, get picked up, thrown back down. You can make a whole song out of it if you really want to. Now, I did have the Ultraman game for the SNES, which is a similar one to this. That's what this one's based off of, though this one has a bunch of changes and the like to it. I just never really got very far in that game. It's a game that I need to re-examine for sure. There's actually several other Ultraman games on Game Boy. The other main one, Ultraman Ball, is actually a pretty fun game that not a whole lot of people have played, but it's kind of a hidden gem on the system for sure. There's also a few other spin-off things with collaborations with other franchises and the like with Ultraman and stuff. There's a lot of those games for multiple systems out there. So the next fight is against Bolton. This is the fight I was talking about that gives me trouble. Not that he really does anything to defeat you, but he's just an annoying fight that can take a while. The gun that they fire out ends up freezing you for a few moments, so that ends up being extra annoying during this battle. You can still hit your throws and all, but getting the timing on the next throw right afterwards is what's really difficult, to just kind of combo the throws. Jumping in the air, you can also do some jump kicks to the enemy to do a little bit of damage. A lot of times I'll wait till he's about to fire the gun, roll underneath the shot, and then pick him up to throw him. It usually ends up working in my favor that I can get the grab off. This is the longest fight in the game for sure. Even the final boss doesn't take that long in comparison to this one usually for me. A lot of times by accident I'll switch off of what selection I want at the bottom of the screen, just because it's very easy to do so with the up button. Finally though, I get to the finish and hit my freeze move, and we're moving on to the next fight. Next up is Jamira. Another very simple fight. We're just going to do our roll attack into it. This one usually is extremely easy, and I never have any problems getting the throw off. We'll have some opponents in just a bit that end up grabbing us and throwing us themselves a lot, so we can't do our roll quite as much against them. Doesn't take long in order to get Jamira down to finish health. Just gotta wait for the meter to fill up at the bottom so I can actually hit my finisher. We do get a little bit of a different scene. I'm sure this is how it is with the canon of the story. I know the battle that you face these monsters in is in story order, except for one of them. One of them's in a different order, I think. Next up is Gamora, another very easy fight for us to deal with. Just going to do the roll and throw. If you're an Ultraman fan and you actually get to check out this video, thank you, first off. And secondly, I would like to know your recommendations for what to check out in the Ultraman universe, because obviously there's a lot of Ultraman stuff at this point. What is the things, or what are the highlights you would recommend? Doesn't take long for us to get Gamora down and hit it with the finisher, and we're moving on to the next battle. it takes longer and longer between each level to just rack up everything. Now, for the next battle, we cannot really run in and grab the opponent. So what we want to do is get close, usually a roll, but just from a little farther away so you don't run directly into them, and then stand up and kick. If you time it right, you can keep knocking them back down to the ground with each kick. They'll walk into some of them, even if you miss initially. This is one of the few creatures you're actually able to fight and get up close to the battle. Now, granted, it can still get out of hand, so you have to be careful and get them back into like the kick combo, but you much easier fight than trying to do any kind of throws to this one. At the end, when we do our move, it combines with his and we get a little cutscene. Two more fights left to go. The next battle can be difficult just because of the way they end up kind of like teleporting a little bit around. We're going to do our kick combo again, trying to get them in that stun block again. While they won't pick you up and throw you as much as the last fight, it still happens quite often, so you don't want to rely on your throw during this battle as much. The kick in general, though, does a pretty good amount of damage and takes far less time, of course, than rolling and throwing. Once you weaken them, and we're going to go ahead and switch on over to our special and go for the finish. And now we just have one last battle to go. The last battle is against Zetan. This is actually a two-part fight. We have our initial battle against them, and then we have to do a little other thing where we have to blast the boss to finish them off. The thing is, though, very susceptible to the throw, just like a lot of the earlier enemies, so you don't have to worry really too much about this fight. You can do the throw mostly. Now, sometimes they will grab you and end up throwing you. Just kind of wait for them to start doing a move, and then you can just do another one of your rolls in order to get that kind of streak back going again. Once we've weakened Zetan enough, we're going to switch on over to our finisher. And then we get a little cutscene, and then we get to blast it from a first-person perspective. All you gotta do here is move the reticle and just fire once and hit it, and once you've hit him one time, it's over and you can enjoy the ending to Ultraman on the Nintendo Game Boy. So there you have it, Ultraman on the Game Boy. Not a great fighter by any means, but I do like some of the music here, as well as I do think the graphics actually are quite nice for the system. This was relatively early in the Game Boy's lifespan. After finishing the game, seeing the ending and all, we get our score racked up, and then we get a high score ranking screen. Go ahead and put my name in here. And then it goes back to the main title screen, and you can start the game all over again. With that, though, it's going to wrap up this episode of Play It Through. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.